Retro Road Test, BMW 735i vs Lexus LS400, 1990. It's caught here. If you like my content and feel able to, please do like it or follow my blogs, Spotify and YouTube channels or Facebook channel. It would mean and help an awful lot. Thank you. https://korg9000.wordpress.com/ Retro Road Test, BMW 735i vs Lexus LS400, 1990. In 1990, if you wanted a large luxury saloon and possessed sufficient money, status or questionable taste in company cars, the obvious choices came from Germany. BMW, Mercedes-Benz and, to a lesser extent, Jaguar had spent decades perfecting the art of making enormous cars in which senior management could arrive looking important. Then, rather rudely, Toyota arrived with a new badge called Lexus. The Lexus LS400 was Toyota's answer to the BMW 7 Series and Mercedes-Benz S-Class, and it was not merely an exercise in producing something vaguely similar. Toyota had apparently decided that the best way to enter the luxury market was to study the opposition very carefully and then build a car that was quieter, smoother and more comprehensively equipped. This was not the sort of behavior European manufacturers particularly enjoyed. So, in 1990, we have two very different interpretations of the luxury saloon: the BMW 735i, the established driver's machine from Munich, and the brand new Lexus LS400, the Japanese technological offensive disguised as a large saloon. And, rather wonderfully, both are very good. BMW 735i. The E32 BMW 7 Series was already an established part of the executive landscape by 1990. The 735i sat neatly between the six-cylinder 730i and the considerably more expensive V12 750i, and used BMW's venerable 3.430cc M30 straight-six. In UK specification it produced around 211 bhp and 225 pound-feet of torque, enough for 0-62 miles per hour in roughly 8.3 seconds and a top speed of around 143 miles per hour. Site turn 0 search 4 turn 0 search 6. Those figures don't sound particularly dramatic today, but remember that this is a luxury saloon rather than a hot hatch. In 1990, an 8-second executive car was properly rapid. The BMW's great advantage is immediately apparent once you start driving it. The steering has weight and precision, the chassis feels beautifully balanced, and the straight-six has that effortless, mechanical quality that BMW did so well. There is something wonderfully satisfying about the M30. It doesn't shout. It simply gets on with the business of converting petrol into forward motion with the quiet confidence of a man who has already checked the train timetable. The ride is firm by luxury car standards, but never uncomfortable. On a decent road the 735i feels remarkably composed, and the driver always knows what the car is doing. This is the BMW's defining characteristic. It feels like a driver's car. Even in a large executive saloon. The cabin is typically BMW of the period, too. Everything is angled slightly towards the driver, the instruments are clear and the controls have a reassuringly solid feel. There is no attempt to dazzle you with unnecessary theatre. Instead, it gives you the impression that the people who designed it understood that the chap sitting behind the wheel might actually enjoy driving. There is plenty of room, although the rear compartment isn't quite as palatial as you might expect from something wearing a 7 Series badge. The BMW's only real problem is that by 1990 it was beginning to look slightly conservative. It was beautifully engineered, but it was still recognizably an evolution of the traditional German executive car. Then you open the Lexus door. Lexus LS400. The LS400 arrived in Britain in 1990 as Lexus' first official UK model. It was powered by an all-aluminium 3,969cc 32-valve V8 producing around 241 bhp in UK specification, with 350 Nm of torque, driving the rear wheels through a 4-speed automatic transmission. Sight turn 0 search 0 turn 0 search 3. And immediately you notice something rather strange. Nothing. The engine is running, but you can barely hear it. This was one of the LS400's party tricks. Toyota had gone to extraordinary lengths to reduce noise, vibration and harshness, and the result was a car that was almost eerily quiet. At motorway speeds, the LS400 feels as though it is traveling inside its own soundproofed bubble. The BMW is refined. The Lexus is uncannily refined. The difference becomes particularly obvious when you accelerate. The BMW gives you a lovely straight six growl and a sense of mechanical involvement. The Lexus simply gathers speed with the smoothness of an electric motor. The V8 is magnificent. It is not particularly theatrical, but then Lexus wasn't trying to make a sports car. It was trying to make the occupants forget that the engine existed. The 4-speed automatic suits the car perfectly. It changes gear almost imperceptibly and keeps the V8 in its effortless torque band. And then there is the equipment. The Lexus arrived in Britain as a one-specification model, meaning there was considerably less opportunity for the traditional executive car buyer to indulge in the German manufacturer's favorite pastime, spending another £7,000 on options. Sight turn 0 search 1. Leather, climate control, electrically adjustable seats, cruise control, electric steering column adjustment, electrically operated mirrors and a substantial audio system were all part of the package. Sight turn 0 search 3. The BMW could be lavishly equipped, but depending on the original buyer's generosity, you might also find yourself looking at a 735i with the equipment specification of a reasonably expensive kitchen appliance. The Lexus simply says, "We've fitted everything." On the road. This is where the two cars separate. The BMW feels smaller than it really is. It responds to steering inputs immediately and has a wonderful sense of balance. Its rear-wheel drive chassis encourages you to drive it properly. Not necessarily quickly. Properly. It is the sort of car that makes a long journey enjoyable simply because you are operating a very good piece of engineering. The Lexus takes the opposite approach. It wants you to relax. Its ride is softer and its steering lighter. The suspension absorbs bumps with an impressive lack of fuss and the car settles itself beautifully after changes in direction. It is less interested in telling you what the road surface is doing. Frankly, it doesn't care. The LS400's job is to ensure that you don't care either. On a motorway, the Lexus is outstanding. It simply eats miles. The cabin remains quiet, the V8 is barely working and the automatic gearbox changes ratios with the subtlety of a Japanese waiter replacing your teacup without interrupting the conversation. The BMW is also an excellent motorway car, but it feels more connected to the road. And that distinction is crucial. If you enjoy driving, the BMW wins. If you enjoy arriving, the Lexus makes an extremely compelling case. Performance. The Lexus has the advantage on paper. With around 241 bhp against the BMW's 211 bhp, the V8 has considerably more power, and the LS400 can reach 62 miles per hour in around 8.3 seconds, with a claimed maximum speed around 155 miles per hour. Site turn 0 search 0 turn 0 search 3. The BMW's 143 miles per hour top speed is more than adequate for Britain, where you will generally spend most of your time looking at the back of a white van anyway. Neither car feels slow. The Lexus simply feels more effortless. The BMW needs a little more encouragement, particularly with the automatic gearbox. The 6-cylinder engine is strong and willing, but the Lexus V8 has the advantage of substantially greater torque and a smoother delivery. There is also something deeply satisfying about flooring the Lexus. The bonnet rises very slightly, the V8 produces a muted whoosh, and suddenly this enormous saloon is traveling at a speed which would probably result in a stern letter from the chief constable. The luxury question. Here the Lexus is almost embarrassingly good. The BMW feels expensive. The Lexus feels as though Toyota's accountants were locked in a cupboard and forgotten about. The seats are superb, the cabin is beautifully finished, and the attention to detail is extraordinary. Lexus had spent years developing the LS400 and subjected prototypes to extensive testing for noise, vibration, material durability and squeak prevention. Site turn 0 search 7. It shows. Everything feels engineered rather than merely assembled. The BMW, meanwhile, has the advantage of atmosphere. Its interior is unmistakably German and has a certain understated authority that the Lexus cannot quite replicate. The BMW says, "I am important." The Lexus says, "I don't need to tell you." Both approaches work. Ownership. This is where the Lexus becomes particularly interesting. BMW had the established dealer network, the prestige and the badge. In 1990, owning a 7 Series made an immediate statement about your position in the world. Lexus was an unknown quantity. There was no established British history. No decades of prestige. No long-established hierarchy of owners, dealers and independent specialists. But the engineering quality of the LS400 was astonishing, and its reputation for reliability would become one of its defining characteristics. The BMW, meanwhile, required more conventional luxury car ownership. Regular maintenance was important, and the electronics, cooling system and suspension components could become expensive if neglected. Then again, the BMW's mechanical simplicity relative to the Lexus' technological sophistication has its own attractions. The M30 engine is old-school engineering. The Lexus V8 is engineering from the future. In 1990, you could almost imagine the BMW engineer muttering, "Very clever," and then quietly ordering one. Verdict. So which one would we take? For sheer driving enjoyment, it has to be the BMW 735i. The E32 is one of those rare large cars which manages to combine luxury, performance and genuine driver involvement without compromising any of them. The straight six is smooth, the chassis is beautifully balanced and the steering remains one of the great joys of the period. But for luxury, refinement and effortless long-distance travel, the Lexus LS400 is extraordinary. It arrived in Britain as an outsider and immediately demonstrated that the traditional European manufacturers had something to worry about. The 4.0-litre V8 is magnificent, the cabin is whisper quiet and the standard equipment list makes some European rivals look positively mean. Ultimately, the BMW is the car you choose if you want to drive to your destination. The Lexus is the car you choose if you want to arrive there. And that is why this particular comparison is so fascinating. The BMW represents the culmination of decades of European executive car development. The Lexus represents someone turning up late to the party, looking around the room and saying, "That's all very impressive. We've built one too." And, rather annoyingly for BMW, it was rather good. Verdict: BMW 735i, 9/10 the driver's luxury saloon. Elegant, involving and beautifully engineered. Lexus LS400, the 9th of May 2010, the astonishingly refined newcomer. Quiet, fast, superbly equipped and built with almost obsessive attention to detail. For 1990, the Lexus was the more remarkable achievement. For the enthusiast, however, the BMW remains the one you'd probably rather take the long way home in. It's caught here. If you like my content and feel able to, please do like it or follow my blogs, Spotify and YouTube channels or Facebook channel. It would mean and help an awful lot. Thank you. https://korg9000.wordpress.com/. Thank you for listening.